I was wondering about our yesterdays and digging through the rubble. And to say the least, somebody went to a hell of a lot of trouble to make sure that when we looked things up, we wouldn't fare too well. And we would come up with totally unreliable pictures of ourselves. But I've compiled what few facts I could, such as they are, to see if we could find out a little bit of something. And this is what I got so far.
235. This is how many times the word Pharaoh is mentioned in history's all-time best-selling book, the King James Bible. But this measly number is how many pharaohs the Bible actually goes out of its way to name. 5. They are, in no particular order, Pharaoh Shoshenq, Orsakon IV, Nikau II, Pharaoh Hofra, and the African Emperor Tiharka. For the longest of time, historians didn't quite know what to do with this last pharaoh, known more commonly as Taharko. Astute listeners might guess why after hearing what the Bible actually says about him. Now, Sennacherib received a report that Tiharka, the king of Kush, was marching out to fight against him. So he again sent messengers to Hezekiah with this word. A fleeting cameo, yet not insignificant. Tiharka is the king of Kush, a place the ancient world knew to be the interior of Africa. Past the first few cataracts of the Nile, its people shrouded in mystery and myth. Kush is the land of the blacks, the Ethiopians, as they were known to classical Europe. The Ethiopians are a people whose pitch-black faces reminded the Greeks of the ether, the abode of constellations and gods, that undefinable black void of space, not, as is commonly supposed, a crude reference to burnt faces. That a man hailing from this world, an indisputably black world, could ever have the strategic, militaristic or economic wherewithal to march on one of history's greatest empires was unthinkable to the Assyriologists and Egyptologists of the 19th century. And so they sought to bury Taharko's memory beneath a rubble of other inconvenient truths from the ancient world. Except you can't really do that with Taharko. Reason? He's everywhere, and not just on the pages of scripture. For example, Manetho, a prominent Egyptian scribe, a man from the era when the Greeks ruled Egypt, lists Taharko as one of the last great pharaohs, a member of the 25th dynasty. Babylonian texts record Taharko's momentary victory over the Assyrians, and later Arab sources eulogize him. Early Egyptologists hated this. It disturbed their theories of racial supremacy. The powers of the 1800s are the same as they are today. England, France, Germany, America. These nations had built their empires on the backs of blacks. How could the Bible make no mention of the Gauls, Celts, or Picts, instead regaling the Kushites repeatedly? For instance, the world's first empire builder, according to scripture, was a Kushite. The Bible calls him literally the son of the patriarch Kush, a man known as Nimrod, whose empire would spill out of Africa and seed the first Mesopotamian city-states. And the sons of Ham were Kush, and Egypt, and Phut, and Canaan. And Kush begat Nimrod. He began to be a mighty one in the earth. He was a mighty hunter before the Lord, wherefore it is said, even as Nimrod the mighty hunter before the Lord. And the beginning of his kingdom was Babel, and Erech, and Akkad, and Calneh in the land of Shinar. Out of that land went forth Ashur, and builded Nineveh, and the city Rehoboth, and Calah. Replete with such witness, the Bible caused some European scholars to wonder at the vicissitudinous cycle of history, while others wept for their absence on antiquity's world stage. But the Bible was revered in the day of men like Petrie, Bruges, and Champollion the Elder. They dared not attack it openly. Instead, aspersions were cast upon men like Manetho and Herodotus, who spoke dispassionately of the facts on the ground. For Taharko's deniers, Manetho became an inventor of fables, while Herodotus was stripped of the title Father of History. Thus, the detractors ran from the truth, until one day they could run no more. The year is 1862. Location, the Sudan. Temperature 40 degrees Celsius, 104 degrees Fahrenheit in low discourse. An official adjusts his worn, dampened fez and stares nonplussed at an obsidian slab of granite found amidst the ruins of the temple of Amun at Jebel Barkal. Cleared of sand, the carved rock is revealed to be almost 6 feet high, 5 feet wide, and about 1 foot 5 inches thick. The officer and his men make no attempt to move the rock. Excellent decision making. It weighs nearly 3 tons, equivalent to a female elephant on a diet. The stone is wholly entwined in 159 lines of hieroglyphic text. The officer, whose name is lost to history, has stumbled on the biggest discovery in archaeology since the Rosetta Stone was unearthed by Napoleonic troops over half a century prior. Recognizing the potential importance of his find, he sketches copies of the slab's inscriptions and dispatches them to the director of monuments in Cairo, a Frenchman named Auguste Mariette. In Cairo, Mariette reads the message from Sudan with bulging eyeballs. Rumor has it they never recovered. Realizing what he may be looking at, Mariette telegraphs frantic orders back to northern Sudan for the stele to be secured and transported to Cairo. It takes 2 years of travel through desert roads and flooded Nile plains for the monolith to reach Cairo. By then, the world has heard of the discovery. The stele's inscriptions have been translated and published. They reveal the genesis of Egypt's last great dynasty and its founder, the Kushite conqueror King Piye, also known as Pianki. It would seem now that the old biblical stories of Kushite conquerors were not mere stories. And yet for another half century, Egyptology struggles to fit the unraveling picture of Kush into its contrived preconceptions of blacks in antiquity. Then in 1916, with Europe engulfed in war, archaeologist George Reisner begins to upturn ancient stone after ancient stone, making discoveries in the Sudan that confirm what everybody, including himself, had been running from.
About 100 years ago, American archaeologist George Reisner excavated many Kush monuments and discovered the tombs of its most important kings.
George Reisner was an amazing pioneer of archaeology in Kush. He started in 1908, he worked into the 1930s, very difficult conditions, and yet he managed to establish a basic chronology, not only of the broad archaeological periods, but of all the kings of Kush. He put them all into order, and it's an order that we still basically use today.
At El Kuru, Reisner got to the bottom of every pyramid, even as he was awed by the pyramids he excavated. He refused to believe they could have been built by the ancestors of the black Africans he saw all around him. His prejudices even seem to have clouded his eyesight. In 1916, when he discovered beautiful black granite statues of the great Kushite kings, he argued they were not real likenesses. Instead, he proposed that the kings and the builders of all the Kushite monuments had actually been light-skinned foreigners.
I think it just challenges so fundamentally some of his personal views about what people in the Sudan were capable of, that he finds it really difficult to suddenly read the evidence. Such a huge challenge that he can't get over it.
Reisner's writings about the Kushites are a window into his warped racial beliefs.
Its very race appears to be a product of its poverty and its isolation. A Negroid Egyptian mixture fused together on a desert riverbank, too far away and too poor to attract a stronger and better race.
Reisner wasn't the last or the first to disparage the Kushites.
This disparagement was not universal. Efforts to detangle the 25th dynasty would have been less entangling had Egyptology's hallowed names heeded the voices screaming at glass ceilings from beneath. These were the voices of researchers like Drusilla Dungy Houston, W.E.B. Du Bois, and Carter G. Woodson. Had the like been acknowledged, it might not have taken so long to piece together the mysterious legacy of Taharqa and the 25th dynasty. For a start, Taharqa was not the last pharaoh of the dynasty, as is frequently reported. His nephew Tamwi Tamani was. What set Taharqa apart was the sheer extent to which he advanced the Kushite Empire and the heights to which he took Egypt before it fell for good. These have never been properly explored. Not in this way. About 2,600 years before Christ, an oracle is summoned before Pharaoh Sneferu of the 4th dynasty to predict the future of Egypt. Pharaoh and his court expect good omens, augurs of a bright future for the Black Land. To the shock of all present, the sage refuses to oblige. Instead, he issues a dire warning. He foretells a devastating downfall of Egypt. He predicts that chaos and catastrophe will come through internal strife and civil war. Then, when all appears lost, the sage proclaims that Egypt shall be restored to its former glory, but only in this way. A king will come from the south, Amun the Justified by name, son of a woman of Tarseti, land of the bow, a child of the southlands, Upper Egypt. He will take the white crown and wear the red crown. He will unite the two great goddesses. He will appease the two gods with that which they desire. This is the legend of the prophecy of Neferti, one of the few surviving works of literature from ancient Egypt. 1800 years on, the first half of Neferti's words were fulfilled. The prosperous era of the new kingdom has collapsed with the death of Ramses XI, the last pharaoh of the 20th dynasty. What follows is dissidence and division. The pharaohs of the 21st dynasty prefer to rule from the extreme north of Egypt in the delta region of Tanis. For this they suffer. Kemet, the Black Land, rejects them. The 21st dynasty rules in name only. Middle and particularly Upper Egypt, the Southlands, where the economic, religious and cultural heartland of Egypt resides, is governed by a sort of Egyptian papacy, the high priests of Amun. This disjointedness allows nomadic desert tribes northwest of Egypt to move in. Herodotus calls the ancient Libyans a diverse group of black and brown desert dwellers native to North Africa. Some say they were relative newcomers on the African continent, rumored to have arrived with the notorious Sea Peoples centuries earlier. No doubt the truth lies in between. Whatever the case, one of these Libyans, Orsicon the Elder, interrupts the 21st dynasty, but only briefly. It would be his nephew, Shoshenq I, or Shishak as the Bible calls him, who would cement Libyan rule in Egypt and thus start the 22nd dynasty. But the rule of the desert chiefs brings in a period of decay. Egypt flounders on the world stage, leaving a vacuum the ascendant Assyrians exploit. International intrigue is a luxury the Libyan pharaohs cannot afford. At home, primeval serpentine institutions create confusion. What's more, Syria fits into Egypt 5 times, Great Britain about 4, Germany 3, Spain twice. Its sheer size alone was simply too much for the new pharaohs to hope to govern. Monuments are left to decay and the hallowed institutions of Kemet fracture, except in one place, the Southlands, the heartland of Kemet, from whence Neferti had prophesied rescue would come. Here a plan bubbles away languidly. On the borderlands of Egypt and beyond, the Kushites have been quietly cooking up a storm. And so are we on this channel. Black history has been misrepresented and underrepresented. Imagine making the history of half the world's population synonymous with colonialism, slavery and just bad vibes only. It's by design, and if you know, you know. Hit the like and subscribe buttons to help us change this narrative and spread the knowledge of real black history with agency and dignity. From Kush to Compton, thank you. Back to the video. About 744 BC, King Piye of the Kushites launches a salvo on Egypt the world will hear. He marches on Memphis, the great city of the north, capital of Egypt. The move is not as sudden as it would seem. What experts often leave out about the 25th dynasty is that it had actually begun well before Piye's march on Memphis. The invasion of Memphis was a mere mop-up job. Piye's father, Castor, is the unsung mastermind behind the Kushite rise, the true patriarch of the 25th dynasty. Seizing chess piece after chess piece, Castor capitalizes on Kush's growing influence over Egypt and installs his daughter Amenidis as something called the god's wife of Amun, a position of immense power. But Castor goes a step further. He orders Princess Shepenepet, Pharaoh Orsakon III's daughter, to adopt Amenidus. Incredibly, Orsakon and his daughter bow to Castor's wish. Shepenepet is divine adoratress of Amun, high priestess at Thebes. Only her daughter can succeed her. Where Egypt Rome in the time of the Borgias, Castor would have just made his daughter Pope in waiting. But we are not in Rome. This is Egypt. Amenidus is now divine adoratress elect. Today we know this as a boss move. Others call it checkmate. The late Laszlo Torok, giant of Egyptology, elaborates. The installation of Castor's daughter as presumptive divine adoratress is the key moment in the process of the extension of Kushite rule over Egyptian territories. The divine adoratress governed the domain of Amun, which was practically identical with Upper Egypt. Not enough, Castor erects monuments as far as the Elephantine, pronouncing himself Lord of the North and South, Pharaoh of Lower and Upper Egypt. Orsakon and his sons say thank you. The truth, if Egyptologists were honest, is that there was no 23rd dynasty. Neither would there be a 24th. There is only Kush, and in the 8th century BC, the sons of Kush have all 5 infinity stones. One thing remained: officialization. Reality had to be inscribed with papyrus and blood, but renowned throughout antiquity for their piety, the Kushites were reluctant to shed blood. Something would have to force the hand of Castor's successor, King Pie. Enter Tefnacht the Unfortunate. Believing in the old adage that fortune favors the bold, the Libyan chieftain marches on the south hoping to put the Kushite pretenders in their place. What happens next is etched in stone, salvaged in 1862 by an anonymous Sudanese officer and Auguste Mariette. King Pie's victory stele, heavily condensed, reads thus. One came to his majesty and said, Tefnacht has seized the entire west. He sails south with a mighty army, the lords of Egypt like dogs at his heels. Has your majesty been silent to forget the Southland, the gnomes of Upper Egypt, while Tefnacht conquers all before him without resistance? Then his majesty sent word to his generals in Egypt saying, March forth, wage war, besiege and beleaguer, only do not ambush. Fight in plain sight. Announce battle to Tefnacht from afar. Let his army amass. Give them due warning and proclaim to them from afar. Know that Amun the god has sent us. And when you arrive at Thebes, purify yourselves in the river. Lay down your bow and arrow. Boast not of your greatness nor strength. The mighty who are ignorant of Amun have no strength, for Amun causes the many to flee the few, and one to chase 1,000. Sprinkle yourselves therefore with water from his altar, kiss the ground before him and pray. Thus a great bloodbath was made among the rebels. Their troops and ships were captured and taken as prisoners. Terror befell the remnant, and they fled to Lower Egypt. Then his majesty raged like a panther. Have they allowed a remnant to flee to Lower Egypt, and not destroyed them to the last man? As I live, as my father Amun favors me, I shall go northwards myself, that I might make Lower Egypt taste the taste of my fingers. His majesty then sailed northward to Memphis, and saw that it was strong, the enclosed walls high with new construction, and the battlements supplied in strength. No way of attacking it was found. Every man proceeded to state his opinion, saying, Let us lay siege to Memphis. Behold, its army is numerous. While others were saying, Make a ramp against it. Let us put together a siege platform. Then his majesty raged like a panther, saying, I shall seize it like a storm. My father Amun has commanded me. His majesty sent his ships and his troops to assault the harbor at Memphis. His majesty himself arranged the battle formation of his ships and commanded his army. Forward against Memphis, mount the ramparts, enter the houses atop the river. And Memphis was taken like as by a storm, with many slain inside it. Then said Tefnacht the rebel by messenger, I cannot look on your face in my days of shame. I cannot stand before your flame, foremost of the Southland. Have mercy. terror of you is in my belly, fear of you is in my bones. Let my property be received into your treasury. Gold, precious stones, horses. Send me a messenger quickly to drive fear from my heart. Game, set, match, right?